Let's make cannabis holy again. Hello and namaste, my fellow ambulatory talking meat sacks of blood and bone. I am your ever-eccentric, although perfectly humble, and genuinely sincere host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Right here with the animatronic DJ Zed. Kicking off the first day of the high holy month of April, making cannabis sacred again, making cannabis holy once more. (7:01) Thursday, April 1st. And the first thing I gotta say, and this is no joke, friends, none whatsoever, I say this to you in all authenticity, in truest and genuine sincerity. I say, fuck off, April Fool's Day. We've had enough. Like, I love a good laugh. And a clever prank that isn't psychologically damaging and toxic AF and or explicitly just bullying under the excuse of pranking. Cool, rock on. Occasionally, may the fool and the prankster archetype be expressed in a healthy way, for sure. But I really don't think that anybody... That in today's echo chamber of echo chambers of echo chambers, postmodern mutual judgment culture that we live in, what's that phrase from what's that Cold War phrase? Mutually assured mutual destruction or something to that effect. That's where we get to with a place of like, it's just fun and games, but you're stabbing someone in their eye with a cocktail, fork. Like, that's fun and games to you? What the fuck? And words do matter. Words have energy. Words have power. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise by minimizing them. That whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me is sort of, macho bullshit. At any rate, I propose, dear friends, to you here and now and forevermore on moving forward into the future as a standing proposition of some civic reorganization we should investigate. Let's officially, without making it some scary, oppressive thing, let's officially just, and I hate to sound like I'm part of cancel culture, because I'm not. Cancel culture cancels itself out. It's so dumb. And it's 4:20, 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the show. Let's just kind of agree that April Fool's needs to evolve. It needs to change. Maybe we can keep the name. Maybe we can, reinvest in a deeper understanding of the root origin source, which I don't have pulled up. I was going to do a thingy, and I'll do it on the next music break that I take while DJ Zed is spinning those digital assets with his animatronic fingers oh so beautifully. I will spagagulate, and that's the term we use in my dimension for Googling. Spagagulating. I'm going to spagagulate. It's cooler than Google, and that company was way more ethical, but that's neither here nor there. It's transdimensional and doesn't apply in this condition. I'm going to spagagulate for shits and giggles the root origin of April Fools. I coulda, shoulda, woulda already typed that in, right? Like April Fools. April Fools origin. It doesn't come up. The top search, according to spagagulate.com, April Fools pranks, April Fool's Day, April Fool's jokes. I guess maybe April Fool's Day will render some origins of. History.com posted 6 days ago. Now, and although I can't quite see it because I haven't actually popped it open, I can see the comma, though, which is the original but, though its exact origins, ... Which means it probably reads something along the lines of its exact origins are unknown. Oh, that tea is really hot. Thank you, Throat Coat, for being part of my morning ritual. And thank you, dear audience, for being part of my entertainment podcast empire. Community. Hustle to survive the slow decay of traditional capitalism as we transition to an ever increasingly cyberified, cyberificated world and social system. Cyberificated. I like that way better than the previous two iterations. Here we are, friends. And I'm serious about that. We should mull that over. Let's replace this centuries-old and hitherto yet to be properly sourced, originated tradition of doing increasingly stupid and dangerous things for a laugh. Not that I'm trying to ruin anybody's fun, yo. I once lost a very dear friend / potential, would-be partner. They were evaluating me. The jury was out. But I'm a little sensitive to humor that borders on, violence. And I get it. I have a dark sense of humor. I'm not some moralistic crusader that's opposed to things, right? I'm not opposed to everything. I'm not the person running around being I'm so offended by this and that. Despite the fact that I do step on a soapbox and pontificate a little on my show here about things that I don't agree with. But I digress. I'm a little weirded out by and sensitive to comedy that is violent and graphic in its nature, and or that approaches or seems to applaud, glorify, and or indicate that violence is, cool. At the same time, as Freud said, sometimes a fucking cigar is just a fucking cigar. And sometimes a person's just being funny. I digress. April Fool's is one of those days that has always I've just never quite wrapped my brain around it. Why is it... Let me transition here to a little bit of a cross pollination of segments and ideas, right? If I haven't already blown my voice out at 9 minutes and 52 seconds in. What was I talking about? Oh, right. there's that scene in WandaVision where we get a look at Wanda and Vision first getting to know each other. And Vision is Vision. You know, he's relatively speaking new to the world. And Wanda is sort of indulging in self-care and cocooning and watching sitcoms, because that for obvious reasons. And Vision points out, oh, it's funny because it's displaced pain. The pain and suffering is going on over there, and we can presume it is not real. But there's this sort of bleeding edge, and then on top of that, like, there's the natural issue of human interactions getting confrontational and or becoming opportunities for ego traps. And then, of course, there's just from the other end of the perspective, I guess, or the other end of the equation, there's just like the idea of pranking people for the sheer ego-driven pleasure of humiliating them. Because what happened? What is it? What is it about pranking people? It's like, haha, look, we made you look a fool. We made you look stupid. We made you look dumb. Why? Because we think you're dumb. Like, it's so, yeah, of course. Listen, I'm fairly certain that some people hearing me propose that this is, quote, bad, will quickly go like, what the fuck cancel culture bullshit is this? Especially without investing in a proper understanding of like my real life and my literary fictional context, both in my artistic real life and in my artistic literary fictional character life. I was a performance artist that performed in, and some people judge this right away, and it's kind of ironic because they're the same people with the be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why don't you have a sense of humor? They'll be the ones that'll be like, fuck you, fuck that, that's such a fucking piece of shit. And treat it with nothing but like animosity and hate. But I used to be a high end, mind you, but also populist. In other words, that we weren't elitist in our performance. But I used to be involved with, seminal in the creation of, and deeply fascinated by the workings, the way it worked. An interesting, fascinating, psychologically entertaining and illuminating performance art technique that essentially required me to be dressed up as a clown, right? Like, the reason I sort of spiraled my way into that is because the moment you say the word clown, there's multiple vectors of loaded baggage that start falling out of the sky onto the field and must be considered in play. But I have a very specific take on the fool and clowning as subjects, and we can do a deep dive in that of those things in a hot minute, or in another episode. But I do want to wrap up my very prolonged and ongoing opening thought, which is that, like, the other end of the equation is April. What do we do with April And why haven't we already begun a movement to officially declare it Cannabis Month? Instead of today being some weird ego-trappy day for making fools of each other, it should be a day for sort of, opening the celebratory, what do you call it? The starting bells. And I sort of failed my construction there, but you know how some people are about Halloween in the middle of Thanksgiving? Or is it the other way around? No, it's people who are ready for Christmas in the middle of Thanksgiving. But you know how some people are ready for Halloween in the middle of Thanksgiving the year before? You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just eager for Halloween and they're ready. And there's a culture about it. There's a we've embraced this and accepted it, whereas it used to be wicked annoying and it used to be cool and trendy, and to really like shitpost and mock and ridicule those people that just love Halloween and love like the archetype of all of that, like the Elvira vibe and the black cats with the arched backs and curly Q-tails and the pumpkins and the spider cobwebs and the black lipstick and the vampire holes in your neck and the whole kid caboodle. And they're eager for that and they're waiting for that in the stores. You know, those people? I'm like that about 420. And now, some music. Pardon me. Yeah. Get in there. So, the fuck was I talking about? Welcome to the show, folks. Fuck April Fool's Day. It is now, we need a new, tradition. we need to declare 420, April 20th, a new national and international holiday, a holy day. If I may be so bold and daring as to say, a high holy day. Ba-dum-bum. That wasn't as funny as I thought it was gonna sound when I thought about it in my head while the music was playing. Thank you, DJ Zed. That was one of my favorite from your newest tracks of remixing the remixes. Double Drop Disco Dank. A Big Room EDM Remix Live audio entertainment track for you, dear audience. Which makes me think of a programming note I almost forgot to talk about. Dance party episodes. I did some of the footwork, no pun intended, in trying to okay, I'm going to curate a new list. I'm going to go to fma.org, freemusicarchive.org, pardon me. Do not go to fma.org. Put a pin in that note. I've already explained why in another episode. Go to freemusicarchive.org. If you want to support awesome, talented musicians of every kind, style, genre imaginable by, utilizing their music using Creative Commons license in your own work. Woo! If you're a videographer or, whatever, influencer, TikToker, etc., get some sexy new music that isn't something your audience has already heard a million times. To that end, my programming note is this. I realize, friends, I would love, and I shit you not when I say this, I would love to host a rockin' Friday night dance party every Friday night. And I would do, that's the kind of thing that I would, imagine in my, welcome to the theater in my mind. Imagine a world in which I'm not doing this from, my living room. My spare guest room converted into an office / study chamber / media, center / et cetera, et cetera. Imagine, if you will, that I was, in an actual big budget, fancy schmancy, nationally syndicated, produced radio show of one of the primetime slots. I don't know if I'd be a morning show. Right now, I am kind of digging doing it in a morning show. But if I was doing this, if I had been doing this back in my, way back in the day when I was, in my late teens, early 20s, I probably would have done it as a late night show. 10 to 2. Because that's a bit more my crowd. But now in this asynchronous internet online, you can binge watch it, binge listen it, you can binge consume whatever kind of content you want, however often you want, whatever schedule on whatever rotation you want. It kind of schedules are out the window as long as you're doing it consistently and in a way that keeps people coming back. My problem, I wish I could do a Friday night thing. Every night. Friday night dance party. And if I were, broadcasting from the top of an awesome radio tower office building with the names of, of my radio station at the top of the building and like my picture on one of those fancy banners that those poster boards all over if I was like that, if I was rolling deep like that, you better believe that I would be doing every Friday night, DJ Zed and I, and the Me, Myself, and I crew, that together comprises Purple Mush and the Political Outrage, would be out and about on tour every week doing live robot dance, animatronic, dance music party shows on the air with the audience on the dance floor. Well, up and away from the dance floor. But we're not there yet, folks. But one can dream. That is the dream. To do it like that. But in terms of the actual programming note for here and now, it has occurred to me that trying to do one of those every Friday night will be impractical and an obstacle to trying to develop any of the other ideas I have for the podcast show. So, but I'm not giving up. So I just wanted to clarify that it has dawned on me that maybe a once a month dance party special is just right. And then maybe if things are getting out of control, or if I start getting a lot of awesome quality submissions, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hint, hint, drop me an email at theincorrigiblemrzeppo@gmail.com. Maybe I'll start trying to do it twice a month. But right now, the way it would have to work, which I'm not going to get into the the boring, tedious details of how I would have to pull this off. It's just a lot of effort. It needs to be a little bit more. I need to be able to hire staff and stuff and delegate some tasks out before we can really crank it up and run it at that level. But in the meantime, I can and will and shall dream it into existence, dear friends, and kind of warm myself up by practicing this show into that sort of momentum. We're going to build that momentum, folks. At any rate, I'm just rambling and blathering here. It is the first day of what I think should be a high holy month. And that may very well become, in the not-too-distant future, a sort of high holy month of spiritual practice, which, entertainingly, relates to and or involves the prolonged and perhaps increasingly intensive consumption of cannabis over time. Of course, all the safety disclaimers that I've ever applied to cannabis use should be taken into consideration here. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go way back to the beginning of the podcast and find, cannabis talk episodes with the words disclaimer in the title or the body text, and you'll get all caught up. I'm not crazy. There's actually pretty serious scientific and ethnocultural, anecdotal evidence to suggest that the ancient root source spiritual traditions from which we originally derived the Judeo-Christian, sort of evolutionary traditions that evolved or maybe sort of emerged from those. Back in the day, before all the texts got written and, and edited and transliterated and corrupted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, back in the oral tradition practice days, what you could rightly call, although I've always sort of loathed the term, back in the actual real-life biblical era, there's plenty of evidence to indicate that entheogenic spiritual practice, the practice of working with medicinal, spiritual, psychedelic, or psychoactive, I kind of like better, plants, was commonplace and totally not controversial and not a problematic, crazy bullshit, let's kill them all, hate preach thing, right? Like Jesus wasn't waging a war on pot. And to take it a step deeper, something that I think a lot of contemporary Christians would find mind-boggling, but as you will see, I've already talked about before in the show. Go check out the episodes where I clearly discuss this. I should pull up these titles before I do that, huh? Oh, I don't know where they are. There's plenty of evidence that whoever was the Christos and whoever was the Magdalene, that they were practitioners of a very well-respected tradition from the Nazarene from the region of is it Nazareth. But there's a family of traditions that are called the Nazarene traditions that, you know, they get their name from the geographical location of Nazareth. I've never been quite clear how you pronounce that one. It's a weird one. And that these, the Nacenes, the therapists, and there's a third one whose name I never quite remember. It always just doesn't want to, falls right out. But that they were very likely all well aware of Eastern traditions and practices like Buddhism in whatever state of development it was in. Because let's remember, folks, even if the dates are somewhat not exactly accurate, the Buddha came before the Christos. In terms of, let's presume there really was a person that had some experience that resembles these biographies, while acknowledging that there has been change, corruption, etc., etc., etc. One educated guess puts the Buddha at 500 years before the Christ, and another at, a couple of thousand. And I'm the kind of person that's like, that's neat, and we don't need to nerd out on the exact dates, etc. We need to investigate the practical and pragmatic veracity of those root original practices. Now, I don't know for a fact that the Buddha himself tinkered with what must have been a similar existing entheogenic experimental subclass of any of the various spiritual practices that were active and alive in the actual day and time that the individual indicated by the label the Buddha actually lived. There's one theory that says, and I don't remember where I found this, or if I'm cobbling together a couple of different theories to kind of come up with this idea, but I vibe with it and I like it. I don't focus on it, and it's not a major thrust of my logic or my thinking. But it kind of makes some sense to me that it's like, oh yeah, huh. That probably is a part of why it's so easy to just fight each other over which prophet is the most righteous, instead of, having had a collective understanding that they were all probably interrelated. And that's that this theory states that whoever the actual real people pointed to, indicated by the labels such as the Buddha, the Christ, Muhammad, as that prophet from that tradition. Although Muhammad, to the best of my understanding, has the most concrete historical context. Like, that person has stronger historical evidence confirming their actual real life existence and identity and presence in the world than Jesus, especially in the way that we are presented him post all of the machinations of the Roman Empire in their formative years. But that's a different issue, right? I'm not trying to make it a contest of religions. I'm an onist, or oneist, or omist, depending on which version of the meme you believe. I'm also a dudist, but that's neither here nor there. Independent of labels, I'm an anti-labelist, right? Whatever that means, because I've made it a label. I've made it an ism. Anti-labelism is the only ism. It against itself, brah. I love it. Okay, anyways, I digress. What was I talking about? Spiritual traditions. My interest is in transcending the baggage we inherit from organized religion, which to me, in my lifetime of being curious about and investigating and reading, especially when I was spending a lot of time in real life libraries and getting the opportunity to do a bit of traveling and whatnot, it's my conclusion that despite all the good intentions, organized religions, as we see them ongoing today in our postmodern context, are subtly and overtly hijacked by the conglomerate of negative influencers in the world, negative players in the world that we could call the quote-unquote, dark side, but whatever. And I don't say that to offend people who are enthusiastic members of any given organized religion. I do say that to rattle their cage a little, because that's what each of their beloved prophets wanted to do. Rattle the cage, share a little light, remind everyone that the teaching is forgiveness and love and ultimately transcendence, and that all the obstacles to those teachings literally are ego. Our own egos are the proverbial, metaphorical, and real life obstacles that we contend with, which are blocking us, preventing us, both as individuals and as a collective, from achieving our individual and collective transformational, third eye opening, spiritual, metaphysical, transcendental healing. That was a really big, windy, complex, cobbled together word soup. And I'm sure that there's more to discuss. But I've been rambling forever, and I really haven't said much, and I apologize. No, I said plenty. Maybe not enough. Maybe too much. I don't know. Let us all, with all appropriate safety caveats taken into consideration, enjoy some spiritual consumption of cannabis this month. And let us, as an emergent culture, take the reins of the cumulative evolution of the norms and boundaries and caveats of this new emergent culture to try and empower it to remain positive, to remain healthy, to remain not toxic. And, invest in the self-care, self-love, self-healing, self-work that we are all being invited to explore. And everybody is, right? There's no one left uninvited. Even the worst of the worst. The people who are most missing out on the spiritual calling, they're invited too. There's no, to the best of my understanding, we are all meant to ultimately help everyone transcend and heal and transcend. To that end, friends, I thank you for your participation in the virtual community we are building vis-a-vis this little radio show podcast style entertainment ritual we're developing between us. I, as a public discourse rambler on the public airwaves with a bit of music, and you, as an enthusiastic and engaged audience. Hit me up. Let me know what's going on with you on your own journey and or relationship with cannabis. I respect all peoples, by the way, folks. Just because I'm an enthusiastic advocate for, promoter of, and in, citizen scientist investigative blogger regarding cannabis as a plant, as a potential super green food, as a known spiritual tool or ally or facilitator. The evidence is there. We've talked about it before. And let me transition and pivot and say this as I wrap things up finally, because it is now, 42 minutes and 53 seconds. Even if all this evidence that I'm vaguely pointing to and not actually giving you very satisfactory review of in this particular episode, because I've done it already in depth in other episodes, and or I'll probably come around full circle and do it again once more in future episodes, maybe even this month, because I don't know, it's April. We always live on the cutting edge of creating our own new, next, better cultural construct, cultural paradox. That's a little misleading for people who may not know my own sort of level of cynicism about the world, but I think it's valid. At any rate, we can, could, should, would be healthily, with health and well-being in mind, we can be redefining, re-engineering, restructuring our society, because change is not inherently bad. Because we do not need to go backwards in order for things to be delightful. And I will not allow myself to fall into the trap of rambling on Unhinged even further. It is 7:44 a.m. Thursday, April 1st. And dear friends, I hope you are joining me in by affirming to yourselves that from starting today and from now on into future years, you will no longer abide. You will no longer allow for that passive-aggressive aggression of this April Fool's tradition stand. It's so 1990s. And we live in the future, folks. We should be Let's normalize recognizing the fact that kindness, empathy, caring, compassion, sensitivity, awareness, etc., and all the accompanying tools and emotional accoutrement that lays over there in that end of the spectrum are not to be summarily dismissed as weakness, and that anyone doing so is revealing more about their own toxic mentality than they are about those they're attacking or critiquing or putting down with such a judgmental statement as to determine that their kindness, etc., is a form of weakness. Love is not a form of weakness. Healing is not a form of weakness. Compassion is not a form of weakness. Only fools would say so based on their own sheer ignorance of ever having not tried and not discovered how much strength and courage it requires to live in those frequencies and deal with, cope with, interact with, engage with, commune with other people in that state of mind, in that state of being, in that state of energy. That shit ain't weak, yo. Let's normalize that. That it ain't weak. That it's strength. That it's courage. That it's boldness to love one another and forgive each other and heal each other and have compassion for each other's suffering and to help each other heal and to help the species transcend this psychosis we've been in for the last, 3 centuries or so. Peace out. Tune in for more as we sort of just enjoy experiencing April as a month in a weird, almost cynical way, kind of like for the first time ever, because the world is so disrupted from its previous not so wonderful normal that we can indulge in that pleasure. We can be like, every day is a brand new fucking crazy day because everything's so up in the air. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to stop rambling right now and leave you with this track entitled Sunset Drive Variants, which I may or may not have already forced you to listen to on my show before. Tough titty, said the kitty, because I do it with love.